Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to another deck tech or deck profile, depending on where you live and how you say it. This one's going to be a little bit different because I have a different format that I'll be working with. I just want to do something that kind of, in my opinion, will speed it up once I get the hang of it. But if y'all ain't rocking with it, just let me know. But if you're okay with it, then I'll try to do it. Not every video. I'll probably try to switch it up every other video. And then if you really like it, I'll just keep doing it that way. But without further ado, let's get into this. I'm going to say real quick, shout out to Joe Johnson of Tabletop Jocks, because you're the reason I made this deck. I got inspired by your, I think it's a Gruul deck that you had on game nights. I very much enjoyed it, and you inspired me to make a partner deck, everyone's favorite kind of mechanic. Long story short, if you don't know what partner is, as long as this creature and this creature both have the keyword partner, as you see here, it says you can have two commanders if both have partner. You can have any creature that has the word partner as long as it just says partner. If it says partner with something, you have to have another creature with the specific partner with whatever the word is. Starting off, we're going to have Akroma or Akroma, vision of, I think it's Zydor, Lixendor. I don't know what place she comes from, but she's a 7-drop, 5 colorless, white, legendary creature angel, 6/6. She has flying, first strike, vigilance, trample. Next, she has, at the beginning of each combat until end of turn, each other creature I control gets +1/+1 if it has flying, +1/+1 for first strike, and so on and so forth for double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, protection, reach, trample, vigilance, and partner. And her last ability is partner. Long story short, keyword soup with her. The more keywords that are on her card that are on the creatures I control, they get bigger. Next up is Kamahl, Heart of Krosa. He's an 8-drop, 6 colorless, green, legendary creature, human druid, 5/5. At the beginning of combat, on my turn, creatures I control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. So he automatically gives them a +3/+3 boost, which is huge, and then gives them trample, which gives them a +1/+1 from Akroma, which he just needs to be on the field for combat, and it's just going to get big, whatever the creature is. Next up is his second ability. 1 colors, green, until end of turn, target land creature you control becomes a 1/1 elemental creature with vigilance, indestructible, and haste. It's still a land. This card also has partner, as you saw at the beginning when I was pointing at the two. So long story short, he is a 5/5, but he himself gains trample and has partner, so he'll gain 2 from Akroma, which will make him a 7/7. Long story short, like I said, everything's keyword soup, and let's get into some of these mighty nice ingredients. Number 1, this is going to be part of the new format, is basically sales or making things cheaper. I don't know what to call this yet. Maybe mana shuffling, or if I want to call it, let's just call it real estate. This is the real estate of the deck, where it's getting a bunch of lands, different properties onto the field, either for cheap or just getting them out of my deck. First up, Kodama's Reach. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, and put one onto the battlefield tapped and the other in your hand, and then shuffle your library. This lets me get either a plains or a forest, thinning the deck so I can get more sorceries, instances, or creatures, enchantments, or artifacts, something other than lands. So, like I said, gives me 2 lands, 1 on the battlefield, 1 in my hand, and if I didn't play a land this turn, I get to play that one. So I usually look at it as 2 lands on the field, but, depends on who you are. Next up, Rampant Growth. Sorcery, search your land, or search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Costs 1 less, but you just get 1 instead of 2, which I'm okay with. Gives me just 1 extra. Next up is one of my favorite RAM cards, Traverse the Outlands. It is a sorcery that says, search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the greatest power among creatures I control. Put those cards onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Biggest amount of X has ever cost for was 21. So X cost 21. I searched up for that many, and I didn't really get that much. I got I think it's 19 I had in the deck left over. So either way, you get a bunch of lands on the battlefield tapped. Like your next turn, you're just going to cast a bunch of stuff. And then, shuffle your deck, obviously. Next up is Cultivate. Same thing like Kodama's Reach, 2 cards. Reveal them, put 1 on the battlefield, tap, and in my hand, then shuffle. Like I said, thinning the deck. The more lands I get out of the deck, the more other spells I get to play, and the faster my commanders come on the field to help. Next up is Migration's Path. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. This one is super simple. 2 lands on the battlefield, thins the deck, and on top of that, if I pay the cycling cost, which is 2, which if you don't know what cycling is, I pay the cycling cost, discard the card, and then draw a card. It's just a way to draw a card, which if I don't need lands, just draw a card. Super nice. Next up is Explosive Vegetation. Same exact thing as Migration's Path, except without the cycling ability. Still get to look for 2 more basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, shuffle my library, boom, done. 2 less land cards in my library, more opportunity to get other things. Next up is Karametra, God of Harvest. She is a legendary enchantment creature, god, 6/7 with indestructible. That's a keyword. As long as my devotion to green and white is less than 7, Karametra isn't a creature. Whenever I cast a creature spell, I may search my library for a forest or plains card, put on the battlefield tap, and then shuffle your library. She is the only card in this deck that lets me search specifically for forest or plains, which I have, I think, 2 or 3 cards in here that are a forest and a plains. So it's very nice to get a card that is both colors that I need in this deck as to picking one or the other. Either way, though, my mana is usually going to be fixed in some way, shape, or form to help me just cast anything from my hand. Next up, Feyburrow Elder. It's Vigilance. It's a tree folk druid creature. It has Vigilance. 0/0. Feyburrow Elder gets a +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. He's usually going to be a 2/2, usually. And then his other ability is tap. For each color among permanents I control, add 1 mana of that color. He's usually going to tap for 2, so 1 green, 1 white. Very simple. It gives me what I need. So let's say if I have a forest and I need a plains, I can tap him. Boom, I got a plains. Very cool. Next up is Avacyn's Pilgrim. Creature, human monk, 1/1, tap it for white. Super simple, not much really to talk there. Next up is Fyndhorn Elves. Same things as Avacyn's Pilgrim, except it taps for green. 1/1 elf druid creature. Super simple, gives me green, where the other one gives me white. Next up is Goreclaw, Terror of the Qualsizma. I think they say that, or Seisma. Legendary creature, bear, 4/3. Creature spells I cast with 4 or power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast. He's the only thing in this deck I think that makes everything cost 2 or less if its power is 4 or more. Next, he says, whenever Goreclaw, Terror of Qualsizma attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1, gains trample at the end of turn. So not only does he give him a +1/+1 and trample, but if Akroma's on the field, it gets another +1/+1 because he's giving all the creatures trample. So you're getting +2/+2 and a keyword, which is super nice in my opinion. Next up is Wild Growth. It's an enchantment aura. I get to enchant any land. Whenever the land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. It just adds green if I need it or if I want more green. Super simple. Makes my lands tap for 2, or at least the one that it's enchanted on, tap for 2. Next up is Dawn's Reflection for 4. Another aura, enchant any land. Whenever an enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 2 mana in any combination of colors. This lets me tap 1 land for 3. Super nice. It's any colors, any 2 colors, or 2 mana of any color that I want. I can just fix my mana to what I need. Next up is Fertile Ground, another aura that lets me enchant any land. It's usually lands I control, obviously, because they're auras, but it lets me enchant any land without any specification. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of any color. That enchanted land taps for 2, which is really nice, and it's any color. It's not green like the other one. Next up is Overgrowth, enchant a land, any land that I control. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 2 green, which is super nice. How like the other one lets me tap for 2 color. I think Dawn's Reflection lets me tap for 2 mana of any color. This one is specifically green, which I'm okay with, like I said. Next up is Utopia Sprawl. I specifically have to enchant a forest I control. As Utopia Sprawl enters the battlefield, choose a color, usually going to be white. Whenever enchanted forest is tapped for mana, its controller adds 1 mana of the chosen color to his or her mana pool. Like I said, usually going to be white. Next up, everyone's favorite Soul Ring. Just an artifact. As soon as you tap it, 2 colorless, super simple, speeds the game up no matter what deck you play. Always nice. Next up is Arcane Signet. Lets me tap for any 1 mana, so lets me add 1 mana of any color in my commander's color identity. So let me rephrase that. Not any color, just any color in my commander's identity, which in this case is white or green. Super simple. Next up, you might be asking yourselves, how am I supposed to help the commander stay on the field? You know, how am I going to get the bodyguards or the shields or the protection? So I call this the bodyguard. Like, how do I bodyguard them? So this is going to be like the bodyguard section. First up is going to be Unbreakable Formation. Creatures I control gain indestructible until end of turn. Now this has another ability. Addendum. If I cast this spell during my main phase, I put a 1/1 counter on each of those creatures and they gain Vigilance until end of turn. Now, not only does this protect my creatures with giving them indestructible, which means you can only get rid of them through exiling, sacrificing them, or giving them -1/1 counters until they hit 0 and like just outright getting rid of them. But if it's on my turn, they gain Vigilance, and if it's before combat on my turn as well, so if it's like main phase 1 and I cast this to protect something, Akroma will see Vigilance because they have it until the end of turn, give them a +1/+1. So not only does it buff them on my turn, it also gives them another keyword being indestructible. So they get indestructible, a +1/+1 counter, and Vigilance. But on top of that, a +1/+1 and a +1/+1 because of Indestructible, and Vigilance. Super fun. Hope that made sense, but like I said, this is the first of the bodyguards. Next is Akrama's Will. Instant, choose one. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both. First option being, creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. Option number 2, creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. Long story short, usually you have a commander out when you play this. You get 6 keywords. You get flying, vigilance, double strike, lifelink, indestructible, and protection. That's +6/+6 from Akrama on top of +3/+3 with Kamahl, which either commander on the field, this deck is helping them out tremendously. Next up is Heroic Intervention. Instant, permanents I control gain hexproof and indestructible till end of turn. Hexproof, you can't target, my enemies can't target me or target my creatures, and they're indestructible. Like I said, it's super hard to get rid of them. They cannot be destroyed, but they can be exiled, sacrificed, or killed off with -1/-1 counters. Next up is Lightning Greaves, an artifact equipment that gives the equipped creature haste and shroud, which means you can't target them and I cannot target them. Equip cost is 0. Next up is Swiftfoot Boots. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste. Equip 1. Super simple. Once again, hexproof. My opponents cannot target them, but I still can if I have stuff that can target them. And gives them haste so they can attack the same turn that they are cast, or if I play that and equip them, they can go. Next up, you might be thinking, well, how do I get my money's worth out of this deck? How do I get some more resources that aren't lands? Like I said, if you thin the deck with mana by getting the cards that make you look for lands, bringing them out the deck, it's super simple, or you can draw cards. For example, first one being Return of the Wildspeaker. I can choose one of the 2 options. The first being draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures I control, which I do believe half the creatures, if not more, I think it's like 75% are humans. I think I only have not that many in the deck. Or option number 2, non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 to end of turn. That second option is really nice if Kamahl's on the field, because giving things +6/+6 and trample really puts a damper on people's health. Next, or not next, but that first option, draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-creatures you control. Always a great way to get other options out. And if I have those enchantments, the auras on the lands, I'm not tapping as much lands as I need to normally for this. Next up, Hunter's Insight is an instant that says, choose target creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, draw that many cards. If I have a giant 9/9 and I hit you and I have trample and I trample over for 8, draw 8 cards. Like I said, there's a potential for me to tap 1 land with an aura on it for 3 mana, play this, draw cards off of just tapping 1 land. That sounds ridiculous to me. It's crazy. It's very fun. I like it. Trample is always very nice for this. On average, it does kind of equal out. It's 3 mana for 3 cards usually because of the trample and whatnot. But next up is probably one of my favorite draw engines or draw like spells in Magic. It's such a fun card. I thoroughly like it. It's called Rishkar's Expertise. It's a sorcery that reads, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. You may cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So the way that this is worded, since that first part is drawing cards, you get to draw all those cards, then you get to look at your hand, and you can cast any spell from your hand that costs 5 or less without paying its mana cost. So for 6 mana, I can draw, let's say the highest I had, I think was 14, 15 power on one creature. So essentially 2 extra hands on top of what I have in my hand, and I get to play 1 spell from that for free if it costs 5 or less. Amazing value. Next up is Beast Whisperer. It's a creature, elf druid, 2/3. Whenever I cast a creature spell, draw a card. It's not even entering the battlefield. It's just me casting it. So on cast, even if you counter that creature and it doesn't go into the battlefield, I still cast it for you to counter it. So I still draw a card. Super nice. Really like this card. That's all I can really say. Moving on. This is Kodama of the West Tree. Now, this one is not a card draw, but I put it in here because it lets me look for lands, and the only reason it's in the creature one, because it makes things nice, I guess. He's just cool overall. He's just a cool guy. He is a legendary creature spirit, 3/3 with reach, so he has a keyword. Modified creatures you control have trample. Now, if you don't know what modified is, it means anything that has equipment attached to it, an aura attached to it, and counters on top of it. So if it gets like a +1/+1 counter, if it has a death touch counter, a lifelink counter, basically just gives all my creatures trample. that are modified. And then whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tab, then shuffle. See, the reason why he's not in the mana one is because, like I said, I don't have a lot of ways to give them modifications, but it's, if they do get it, I have a reason to give him trample, you know? Like, it gives my creatures trample because they're modified, so I see him more as, like, being in this than anything else. He's not a card draw, but like I said, he's a weird character. He's like, he fits so many things. I put him in here because I'm not drawing the card, but I'm looking for a land, but it has to be a modified land. It's not one I can just get, so there's like a stipulation to it. So in my head, I'm drawing the land. It's weird, I know. I'm a weird dude when I play Magic. Let's get over it. Next thing. Got Toski, Bearer of Secrets, legendary creature squirrel, 1/1. The spell can't be countered. Everyone's favorite words to ever hear in Magic is this spell can't be countered. Love it. This one is more fair than Coma. Don't argue with me. He cannot be countered, has indestructible. Then Toski, Bearer of Secrets attacks each combat of Fable. So he's technically goated. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So long story short, any creature I control hits a player, I draw a card. So if I hit you with 9 1/1s, I draw 9 cards. Super fun, super simple. And since he has indestructible, he's usually just staying on the field for a while. Next up is Orin Frostfang, snow creature, snake, 2/6. Attacking creatures I control have death touch. This does not work with Akrama's ability because they have to be attacking, whereas Akrama is at the beginning of each combat, where this one is during combat. Technically, I'll be attacking. Don't matter about that. Doesn't add the keyword, doesn't trigger. That's not what we're here for. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, or whenever a creature I control deals combat damage to a player, I draw a card. Same thing as Toski. Just as long as a creature hits you, I'm gaining 1 card off of it. Next up is, in my opinion, the best draw spell in Magic, Guardian Project. It's an enchantment that reads, whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control or creature card in my graveyard or in your graveyard, draw a card. Long story short, I'm playing Commander, so there's not going to be multiple copies of cards in this. It's only going to be 1 copy unless for some reason I'm playing cards that let me add any amount of copies, which I'm not going to do. It's just as simple as it is. Every card that I cast that enters the battlefield that's a creature, they don't have other copies in the deck, so I'm just going to draw a card off them for every creature. Super nice, love it. Very, very easy draw engine in the game. Next up is Colossal Majesty enchantment. At the beginning of my upkeep, if I control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. It's just an extra card on my upkeep every turn. That's my turn, I should say. So yeah, every upkeep I have, I draw a card if I have a creature with power 4 or greater. Not as strong as Guardian Project, but like I said, 1 extra card, never hurt anybody. Last but not least is Garruk's Uprising. When Garruk's Uprising enters the battlefield, if I control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Usually do, draw 1 card for just having it enter. Creatures I control have trample. So you hear that? It gives all my creatures a keyword. Last but not least, whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, draw a card. Super simple. I'm usually going to have multiple creatures that have power 4 or greater. Like I said, really easy to get cards off of that. Not as easy as Guardian Project, but still gives it a keyword, so I can draw a card when it enters, gives everything a keyword, and draw multiple cards if I keep playing things with power 4 or greater. Fantastic. Now, this isn't the last category of the entire video. This is just the last category of the new format. So, this is going to be like the big hitters, or like game enders, game changers, whatever you want to call them. I call them the big hitters. So this is the big hitter side of the video. First up is going to be Zatulpa Primal Dawn. It is a 6-drop legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur, 4/8 with flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. You might ask yourself, hey Rocha, how does a 4/8 become so deadly? Well, it's double strike, which makes it 8 damage, but that's not what we're here for. It has flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible. With Akrama, that's +5. So +5 to 4 is 9. Then Kamal gives it +3/+3, which brings it to 12. So if I have in, Magic Christmas land of Magic, if I have both my commanders on the field and Zatulpa hits the field, he's going to do 24 damage because he's a 12, I think he's like a 12-13, 12-11 after all the calculations are done. I think it's 12-11. After everything's said and done, no, he's even bigger. Either way, he has 12 power. That's all you need to know. He's got 12 power. Double strike is going to be disgusting. He doesn't tap, has trample to trample over, flying, indestructible. He's going to do a lot of damage to you because he's a 12-12. So yeah, so 12 once and then 12 again. It's 24. Like I said, I've only ended 1 game with him because every time someone sees him, he's exiled or sacrificed off rip every time, which I'm okay with because you know how I play. I like getting out first. Next up is Akramal, Angel of Wrath, 8-drop legendary creature, Angel, 6/6. has flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from black and red. This gets +6/+6 from Akrama, then +3/+3 from, Kamahl. But it also has protection from arguably the most removal-heavy colors, which are black and red, because black just straight out destroys stuff, and red just deals damage until it goes away. But just getting rid of that altogether to have protection, insane to me. Next up, Abyssin, Angel of Hope, 8-drop creature, legendary creature, Angel, 8/8, flying, vigilance, indestructible. And then that's not what I'm here for, the keywords. I'm here for the second part is other permanents I control have indestructible. As soon as she hits the field, you can only get rid of my stuff by either returning it to my hand, exiling it, putting -1/1 counters on it. I keep saying 1/1 counters, but it's -1/1 counters on it, or forcing me to sacrifice a creature. Every time she hits the field, the game's going to end in one turn. You have one turn for me to not absolutely just end the game as soon as she enters or the next turn. She's a big hitter. Really love her. She's probably the MVP of the deck. Next up is arguably either the runner-up or the actual MVP is Odric, Lunarch Marshal. 4-drop, legendary creature, human soldier, 3/3. At the beginning of each combat, not just mine, every combat. At the beginning of each combat, creatures I control gain first strike until end of turn if a creature I control has first strike. The same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. Long story short, anything that's on the field that has a keyword, if Odric's on the field, all my creatures have that keyword. Super simple, really like him. Really changes the game up, really makes it so it's like, oh, now we have to deal with all your creatures having these abilities, getting buffed by both your commanders. He's such a cool card. Like I said, he might be the MVP of this deck. Who knows? Because the other one gives indestructible everything, but he gives everybody every keyword that's on the field. So I might change my mind and say Odric's the MVP. Super simple. Always watching. Now, some people might see this as a weird one because it is an enchantment that says non-token creatures you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. You might see this as like, well, that's kind of weird, Damien. It doesn't really change the game because it only gives them +1/+1 and vigilance. Well, the big thing about this is vigilance is probably one of the strongest keywords in this deck because Akrama says each combat, not just mine, at the beginning of each combat. So on everyone's turn, I get to have that vigilance on them, which keeps them from not being tapped so they can, stay up, right, and defend. But it's just in the sense of it's really nice to have something that isn't tapped is really why it's here. And plus vigilance, a lot of these cards are going to say on each combat, at the beginning of each combat, or the beginning of each main phase, stuff like that. Vigilance is super nice to have because they just stay up. Next up, Angelic Accord. Now this one's a little bit of a weird one. This one's kind of like the Kodama one where it's kind of in here because it is a big game changer, but this one does have specifications. This enchantment reads, at the beginning of each end step, if you gain 4 or more life this turn, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Vigilance is super cool because it keeps them up so they can defend. If they have lifelink, boom. Even if they die, if I gain 4 more life, I get to make another angel, put it on the battlefield. And since it has flying, it becomes a 5/5 because of Akrama. I'm just getting more creatures to defend myself that potentially might get lifelink depending on who's on the field still. Next up, Felidar Retreat. This is an enchantment with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, I may choose one. But this is whenever a land enters the battlefield under my control, because that would be busted if it's just in general. First option, create a 2/2 white cat beast creature token. Second option, put a 1/1 counter on each creature I control. Those creatures gain vigilance at end of turn. I'm more likely going to pick that second one, putting a 1/1 on each creature I control, then give them vigilance. Vigilance is only going to be on there one time for each land, and with all the mana ramp I have, each time that comes in, just boom, give all my creatures vigilance, boom, make a 2/2, boom, make a 2/2. Just keep doing that one over and over. Next up is Cathar's Crusade. Enchantment, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under my control, I put a +1/+1 counter on each creature I control. So if I have that token generator or just smaller creatures in general, they're all going to get buffer. It's just insane. Love it. Really gets out of control. Next up is my favorite artifact of all time. This is one of the very first artifacts I fell in love with, or cards I fell in love with in general when it came to Magic, is Akrama's Memorial. It is a 7-drop legendary artifact, 7 colorless specifically. Creatures I control get flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and red. So Akrama herself has all that, if I remember correctly, and this gives all my creatures her abilities. So that's +1/+1 6 times from Akrama, my commander. onto every creature I control. And once again, gives it protection from the two most, like, creature removal spells or colors, which is black and red. Super fun. I love this card. Every time this card has, this is a game ender. Every time this card has hit the battlefield, I've taken someone out of the game. Every time. And I'm not even joking with that. It's super fun. I like it. And then I usually die the next turn, but like I said, that's okay. Last but not least is another game ender, True Conviction. It is an enchantment that reads, creatures I control have double strike and lifelink. This is a 6-drop, 3 colors, white, white, white. But as soon as this hits the battlefield, it usually ends games. Because all my creatures like 14 or like 9 9s, 13 13, like they're just super big. And they're going to deal double damage to you, or at least hit you twice, depending on if you have creatures to block and then trample goes through, you know. But usually does a lot of damage, gives me a lot of health. But those are the big game changers, the game enders, whatever you want to call them, big hitters, whatever. Next up are just going to be creatures that like fill the gaps. I'm going to try to get through these faster because they just either have keywords or they add a keyword to somebody, but they're not as, in my opinion, as strong as other ones in the deck. So, first up is Sunblade Angel, just has 4 keywords. Next up is Questing Beast, has 3 keywords. I really do not care about the rest of that. The combat damage that would be dealt by creatures I control can't be prevented is nice, but like a lot of people don't play fogs or like things that prevent damage. But he's mainly here for Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste, and Odric giving everything Vigilance, Death Touch, and Haste. Next up is Angelic Skirmisher, flying, and then at the beginning of each combat, I give creatures either First Strike, Vigilance, or Lifelink. They gain that ability to end of turn, which it's just easier to get rid of creatures in this game than anything else, so like that's why she's not in like the other categories. Next up is Angelic Field Marshal. She has flying and the ability Lieutenant. As long as you control your commander, this creature, Angelic Field Marshal, gets +2/+2, and creatures I control have Vigilance. Once again, the reason why she's not in like the big game changers, super easy to get rid of creatures in this game. Next up is Archetype of Courage. Gives all my creatures First Strike, and then creatures my opponents control lose First Strike and cannot gain First Strike. Just gives all my creatures a keyword, but since he's an enchantment creature as well, lots of ways to get rid of him. Lathiel, the Boundless Dawn, lifelink. At the beginning of each end step, if I gain life this turn, distribute up to that many 1/1 counters among any I can't read. That many 1/1 counters among any number of other target creatures. Long story short, if I gain 12 health, I can distribute up to, let's say there's 2 creatures. I can do 6 counters here, 6 counters here, or 10 here, 2 here, however I want to distribute that among the creatures. Next up, Victory's Envoy. At the beginning of my upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on each creature I control. This is just here to kind of help out the Kodama, so I can get like modified creatures. Same thing with Lathiel. Another helper for Kodama is Loyal Guardian. Trample, Lieutenant. At the beginning of my combat on my turn, if I control my commander, put a 1/1 counter on each creature I control. Super simple. It gives everything bigger, modifies them. Next up is Sereth. Other tapped creatures I control have Death Touch. Other untapped creatures I control have Hexproof. She gives protection to other creatures if they're not tapped, which is nice, so you can't target them. And then her last ability is 1 colorless tapper and tap another target creature or land control. Don't really have to use that much because I'm usually not going to attack with everything unless I know I'm going to win the game. So 9 times out of 10, everything has Hexproof because it's untapped or has Vigilance. Next up is Seaguarda's Vanguard, Flash, flying. Whenever Seaguarda's Vanguard enters the battlefield or attacks, choose any number of creatures with different powers. Those creatures gain double strike and end of turn. She is nice to give things double strike, but there's a lot of creatures that, like, with the keywords they have, and if there's not certain cards on the field to make them get all the keywords, they usually kind of round out around like the 9 to like 12 range of power. So at max, it's like usually 2 creatures with different powers. So it's like she's okay when she enters, but not really helping. Last but not least is Thraben Watcher. Flying, Vigilance. Other non-token creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Vigilance. It's the same thing as the enchantment I have, but like I said, creatures are easier to get rid of in this game than anything else. Last but not least, moving on, I should say, is the instances, the removal spells. Generous Gift, destroy target permanent. Its controller gates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. Super nice, gets rid of something that has a key, like keywords, or something that has like mana generation on it. Just, here you go, here's a 3/3 with no keywords. Swords of Plowshare, exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Beast Within, destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. Same thing like Generous Gift, except it's green. Krosan's Grip, split second, which means as long as this spell is on the stack, players cannot cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So if you're not making mana, you can't do anything about this. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Kamal's Will. This one's pretty cool. It's an instant. Choose one. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both. Till end of turn, any number of target lands you control become 1/1 creatures with vigilance, indestructible, and haste. They're still lands. So it's like Kamal's ability, except it's any number of lands that I can turn things into, which is really nice. Second one is choose target creature you don't control. Each creature you control deals combat damage equal to its power to that creature. Usually I only need to target one creature, and then my creature usually just OHKOs it. Pretty simple. Just boom, there you go. Next up is Path to Exile. Exile target creature. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle his or her library. Last but not least is Nature's Claim. Destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Its controller gains 4 life. Really don't care about that 4 life because whatever's on the field, if it's that big of a problem, 4 life is not going to kill me. Last but not least are the sorceries. So we got Farewell. Choose one or more. I'm going to be exiling all artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and graveyards almost every time because I'm starting it over for everybody. Nobody gets freebies or no one gets a head start. Wrath of God. Destroy all creatures that cannot be regenerated. Sylvan Awakening. Until your next turn, all lands I control become 2/2 elemental creature tokens with reach, indestructible, and haste. They're still lands. This one's kind of like Kamal's ability, but it makes them 2/2s instead of 1/1s, and then I do believe they get reach instead of trample, which it's still nice. 3 keywords, still have indestructible and haste, super nice. Last but not least, Vanquish the Hordes, 8-drop sorcery. The reason I bring up its mana cost is because it usually should never cost 8. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Destroy all creatures. Now, with that being said, I do appreciate you guys watching. Let me know if you like this format better. I think what I'm going to do is call that last section of cards spot fillers, like things just to kind of be there, because usually they're like your generic cards or like cards that just fit the mold but don't really like change the outcome of the game. But without further ado, thank you so much for watching. And before I go, this is what the back of the cards look like, by the way. These are my favorite card sleeves, and this is my favorite comic panel in comic book history, because it's just, I'm a Hulk stan until I die. It's super cool. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.